2 years ago, but it's when I'm talking to anybody. Do you understand every word that's coming out of my mouth?
Yep.
Good, because I do not understand every word that's coming out of my mouth. It's been a crazy time. Oh, hey, I won Cash for Life. Yeah, it happened a couple of years ago, actually. I guess just around the pandemic time started. Yeah, I won Cash for Life. And the really interesting thing, I'll tell you about Cash for Life, apart from the fact that you feel you're set, right, is that it's really interesting how they pay it out. It comes to you every month, and it comes, okay? And when you get the Cash for Life payment, it comes in 2 installments. So when you look in your bank statement, one says OAS and the other one says CPP. So apparently I'm set now for life. So we're all in the same wheelhouse. Neil's asked me to talk to you today about how we bring a play to the stage. How many people here have been to Theater Orangeville? Oh, I love preaching to the choir. So Neil wanted to, just for me to talk a little bit about how we bring a play forward. So when you come and see a show on that stage, the life that it's had, because we do a lot of original work. Since we closed in March of 20, or when we were forced to close the theater, it was the opening night of a brand new play that we had commissioned and that we were doing. And the actors, of course, were suitably distressed, and we were all freaked out. And as all of us, we thought, well, this will last a couple of months, and then we'll be okay, and we'll get over it. We'll see where life takes us. And if you're familiar with Orangeville at all, the main street of Orangeville that the theater is on is called Broadway. Not Broadway Road, Broadway Street. It's just one word, Broadway. So I was able to give the actors some solace, because it's not every actor who can say that they opened and closed on Broadway on the same night. But of course, we're the real Broadway. Since that time, I just kind of want to set it in a bit of a context, right? As to how we bring the play. Oh, look at me. My God, if I don't lose 30 pounds immediately. Oh, my word. Welcome to COVID times. So we have been in the theater, and then we went online, and then we went outdoors, and now since October, we have been back in the theater, bringing audiences into the theater safely. Historically, theater in this country is created in a very traditional, Eurocentric kind of way. You come into a building, you sit in a row, you're given a program, the lights go down, something happens, you laugh, you cry, you cheer, you boo, whatever your reaction is to it. There's an intermission, you get up, you stretch your legs, you come back. It happens in a very, very traditional kind of setting. So all of that has changed now. And it's not just changing because of this thing we call COVID. It's changing because of the rise of social movements within our country and within our community that have brought about a growing awareness around societal and moral responsibility that all of us share together. And that's one of the things that I want to talk to you about today as well, around how we as artists and how we as a theater company move forward those kind of social and societal responsibilities to make our communities better. We have, as you know, we have a very interesting creative mandate at Theater Orangeville. When you come to our theater, you will not see, I don't know, pick one, Mamma Mia. You will not see Steel Magnolias. You will not see those kind of shows because our artistic ethos is to do work that is created by Canadians. Canadian playwrights, writers, composers, adapters, all of that kind of stuff to do a very specific kind of work. And is that me? Or am I doing something wrong?
No.
Do I need to stay here?
I think so. Better, yeah.
That's not me. Well, hey, now that was not me. There's no way that was me. I'm not even touching the thing. I'm just wired for sound. So when we create a new play or we're developing a new play or musical that we're basing on local history, local lore, there's stories that really, we're trying to tell stories. We are storytellers. You may not have noticed, but I like to talk. That's what I do. I wish I could write. I wish I had the discipline to sit down and put words on paper. I don't know how to do that because I don't know how to stop running my mouth. What I do know how to do is work with people who have that skill set and that passion and that understanding that when they create in solitude and in loneliness for an art form that is designed to be spoken out loud, I can work with those people to do that within our community. Our community, by the way, includes Brampton. It goes as far as Newmarket. We go as far north as Collingwood. We go as far west as Alliston and down into Georgetown. About 10 years ago, we were doing a huge program for children. We're going to talk a little bit about stuff that you might not even be aware of that happens at Theatre Orangeville. Neil, you'll shut me down after about 90 minutes, 2 hours.
Yeah, we
of what this talk is. No, please, just give me the high sign. I can shut up when I'm told. It was about 10 years ago. We were doing a show for young people in the theater, specifically for elementary schools. And one of the actors came to me afterwards, a Toronto guy, and he came. Kids, and he went, I had no idea. And I said, no, these kids are all from Brampton because the schools come up. You'll see 6, 8, 10 school buses heading up Highway 10 every morning if we're doing a show for those schools, because it's not happening here in this immediate community. Schools from Brampton are having to come up to Orangeville to see the shows that the schools want them to see. And those shows include things that we've been creating for 20 years now, since I've been there anyways, that we now take into schools, not just in Brampton, but in that entire catchment area that I was just talking about. Shows about alcohol and drug abuse, sexual abuse, emotional abuse, homelessness, illiteracy, all bullying, all of those issues that kids as young as this are dealing with every day now in their lives in schools and around their communities. So we're creating those specific shows to talk to kids about what that is. We're in the middle of creating a show right now. I don't know if you were aware, I was gutted when I learned the extent of sexual trafficking that takes place in our community. Of young people, both young men and young women, who are trafficked, who are groomed, identified, groomed, and trafficked in sexual trade in this community. Just north of here and up around is one of the largest holding areas where young people who are brought into that lifestyle are held because we're close to the airport, and that they can then be shipped off around the world to be abused, tortured, and taken advantage of. Those are the kind of stories that we need to bring forward because they are happening right here. They're happening in Orangeville. They're happening in Newmarket. They're happening in Owen Sound. And that's part of our responsibility as artists to bring those stories forward. Somebody was asking me if we were having a Norm Foster play this year. Yes, we are, because they're fantastic shows. They're super funny. They're hugely entertaining. But our purpose as artists and as tellers of stories is not just to entertain. It's also to disturb, to enlighten, to bring forward conversations that are sometimes difficult, nasty, and unbearable to hear. That having been said, we got a great show on the stage right now about the history of rock and roll, because we all need a good time as well, right? When we're developing work for the last 20 years, why do I say late? For the last 20 years, we have been creating work that celebrates ability. For the last 20 years, we have been working with Community Living Dufferin, which is our local social service that supports adults in the neurodiverse community. So for 20 years now, we have been creating shows, putting them on that stage in that theater that you have sat on, or sat in that theater, that tell the stories of members of the neurodiverse community. I don't have children. I work with actors, so therefore I work with children every day of my life. I thought, and I'm sure there's a ton of fathers here in the room, I thought mistakenly that children learned respect for others at home. Apparently that's not the case. It is a credited program in grade 10 in secondary school that focuses on respect, personal respect. It's taught all through every school system in the province of Ontario. So we have a program that we take into schools now called the R word, which talks about the use, or rather misuse, of the word retard. And why that word is just as offensive as pretty much any other descriptive that you can think of to hurt someone with, right? The N word was developed to inflict hatred and pain on people, as is the word retard. And it's our responsibility as artists and as tellers of stories that you might not hear sometimes as to how that works. In the neurodiverse community, how many times in this room has anyone in this room ever used the N word? There's a couple of honest people in the room.
I'm the teacher.
There you are. Has anyone in this room ever been walking down the street and encountered someone or an individual that makes you feel uncomfortable? That makes you go, I don't have time to engage in this. I got to get here, or I don't want to see this, right? So I look through it, I look over it, I look around it, I look anywhere but directly into its eyes of what that situation might be that makes you uncomfortable. And that's what we're doing with our Creative Partners program, is we're taking that away and we're saying, you must talk to people as people. It doesn't matter, neurodiverse, black, all that stuff doesn't matter. We need to be focused on what that is. So when we decide of what those stories are that we're going to start to tell, in my world, we do it in the form of a play. We do it in the form of storytelling. We are all hardwired to tell stories or to listen to stories of any kind, whether it's once upon a time or whether it's whatever. We love stories. I don't think we could live without stories, without sharing stories. Whether it's stories from the Bible, whether they're stories from other great works of literature, whatever they are, we live for those stories. Plays are really hard to read because they weren't meant to be read. They were meant to be read out loud. Is there anyone here who really loves the works of William Shakespeare? 4 people. Is there anyone here who really dislikes William Shakespeare? No one's going to admit that. No. Is there anyone here who found difficulty with the works of William Shakespeare in school? Ah, now there's a lot more. Why do you think that's the case? A, because it wasn't meant to be read and studied and write an essay on it. It was meant to stand up with it in your hand and read it out loud. If kids today, I don't think it's even taught in schools anymore. If you, as a young man or young person, for those of you at home who may be watching, who are not young men, if you knew that with the exception of 3 history plays, which should never really ever be done again, that all of Shakespeare's works share one theme in common. Do you know what that theme is? Yes. Anti-Semitism. Fair answer. Sorry? Tragedy. Now, there are comedies as well, right? Fair enough. But thematically, they all share one thing in common.
Love and hope.
Whoa, love and hope. We're sort of halfway there. We're not all the way there. Yes, sir. Use of language, of course, is super important. That's what Shakespeare was all about. But if you look at those major plays, all of them share one thing in common. And if this was taught in high school, and if this was understood, it would be a different world, and your experience might have been different. All of Shakespeare's plays are about sex. The pursuit of it, the enjoyment of it, and the understanding of it. Is there anything else that we all are more interested in sometimes? So, to stand in a room, to sit in a room and watch, because Juliet is 13 years old. Her mother says, I was a mother a year at your age, which means her mother was married and gave birth at the age of 12. In those days, not uncommon, I suppose. Juliet is 13. Romeo is 14 or 15 years old, which means that their parents don't look like me. They're 30 years old. They are young people themselves. When a 13-year-old girl stands in the dark on a balcony alone at night and says, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? And a 14-year-old boy answers from the dark, behold, 'tis Juliet, right? Something's going to happen. That's what that play is about. When we produced that play and we presented it to a high school class, framed, of course, properly in the context of what that discussion is, it was startling because everyone in the room went, my God, they're children who engage in a pact of suicide. They enter into a pact to end their lives together for love. And it goes awry and there's mistakes. And of course, the old friar gets in the way and messes the whole thing up. And that's why it's a tragedy, not a comedy or a happy ending play, because there is a misunderstanding of language that leads to a set of circumstances where two young children kill themselves. When that message lands with a high school audience, it's profound because, my friends, that's what kids are talking about in schools these days, right? These are the kind of issues that they deal with every day in their lives in the schools that they're in, or without, or it's not a school thing, but of what they struggle with, right? Sometimes it's inconceivable for me. It's because I'm of my age, I guess, to think about what those struggles must be, because I don't remember having those struggles, or they were so remotely, but today they're so common, right? So when we take a play like that and we frame it in the context of what it well and truly is, there is no one in the world who understands that play better than 13 and 14-year-old young people, because it's about them. Unfortunately, when you see that play produced most times, it's not played by a 13-year-old young woman. It's played by a woman who's usually considerably older than that, pretending to be that she's 13 years old, but we don't really buy the convention, right? How do I choose play? My job is really simple. Well, my job is to serve the play, to do whatever we need to do within the bounds of good taste and legality of what we need to do in order to bring that play forward, to work with a playwright to develop their thought. Because, as I said, writing is seems to be a very lonely job, or all those voices are banging around inside their brain, and my job is to help them find the conduit to get the voices out. So those writers always talk about the characters take over the writing. The characters write the play, or the characters write the novel, right? And it's just interesting to be able to help them. Sometimes, I get unsolicited works. People will send me a play. If there's anyone here who's a playwright, please send it to me. I will read it and we'll talk about it. Even if it's only 2 lines, it's kind of what we do to help to work with new artists. I commission work to be created. I get unsolicited work. My my instincts are not always 100%. I remember we went to see a workshop production of a musical. It was at Sheridan College or Sheridan University, I guess as it's called now. And we sat and we watched the show, and it was kind of okay. And you know, at the end of it, kind of was leaving, and we got in the car. Lisa and I were driving home, and you know, I said, you know, I don't know. Is anybody really going to want to sit and watch for 2 hours, watch a show about a bunch of people who were forced to land their airplanes in Newfoundland, and you know, like, who's going to sit and watch that? So of course, my opinion of what I thought Come From Away was going to be was very different than what it turned out to be. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it. It's a fantastic show. In order to bring a play forward, it usually takes 12 to 18 months. From the first moment we talk about doing the idea to the opening night when you come and see it. That's a play. A musical is usually about 18 months to 24 months. And we always have work in development at any time. Right now, we're developing 5 new shows that you will see on stage within the course of the next 3 years. 2 are musicals, 3 are plays. 2 are written by BIPOC creators. So yeah, that's really kind of a great thing. Peter, can we try this PowerPoint thing? Mike, can we turn the lights off again? Thanks. So it starts with me, I guess. So if you like the show or you don't like the show, I guess that responsibility lies with me because I'm the one who chose the plan. That's my job. My job is to choose the season that I think will entertain, enlighten, engage you as an audience, and bring that forward. Are we good? So it starts with a directorial vision of the play. We're going to do Romeo and Juliet, and we're going to set it on Mars. It's going to be an outer space thing. That's the directorial vision of what my feel is about the play. I couldn't imagine anything worse than setting Romeo and Juliet on Mars. I don't know why that came to my brain. But it starts first with that decision, and then it starts with my kind of concept of what I feel the play is about. What is the message of it? Is it, you know, even if it's a comedy, it's got to have something going for it in terms of what that is. And then we very quickly get into a design process. Peter, do you want to bring up that PowerPoint? Oh, we're waiting for the projector. Can't dance, don't ask me. Can't dance, why make me? Da, 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 da. I tap dance if I knew how. Any questions so far? Yes, sir.
How much do you get a month from that Cash for Life?
Not enough. Had I known, I would have been a lot more. I would have been a lot more prudent in my life had I known.
Oh, I shouldn't have asked.
But all donations gratefully received. Anybody else have anything they want to ask about? Since we're waiting for this thing to get fired up, about what you may have seen at the theater. Or yes, again, sir.
Yeah, I've been up there a couple of times. Every people that act in the shows, musicals and whatever, I went to see one on a cruise ship and a bartender. So they get paid.
Indeed.
Oh, good.
Theater Orangeville, for those of you who perhaps are not, forgive me. Theater Orangeville is a fully professional theater company. It is a registered not-for-profit charity. It's like your church or like the hospital or anything like that. It is, we're getting there. Yes, so everyone who works in the theater, that's how they make their living. Designers, dancers, choreographers, scenic painters, carpenters, actors, everyone involved in that process, right? Which is why, it's okay. So what happens then is that I sit down with a team of designers, lighting designer, set designer, sound designer, costume designer, and we start to talk about what my vision of the play is. We're going to set this play on Mars. So that means that it needs to have like silver space suits or something like that. And we start to bring together what that sort of discussion looks like as to how we create it. Because in order to convince you, what we do is lie for a living. Everything on stage fundamentally is an untruth. If it were true, we'd need a different actor every night to play Hamlet when the stage when the scene ends in a bloodbath. Oh, here's, sorry.
Speaker.
If anybody hasn't seen Hamlet, it doesn't end well. Okay,
No,
sorry, that should have been a spoiler alert. What is that?
How do I do that? How do I do spotlight? Okay, like
I
here.
used to be really good with these. I used to get it.
Okay, Dieter. Well, actually,
I've lost the ability.
Dieter's kid.
So we'll come back to it. When we get it fired up, we'll come back to
I
that.
don't see Dieter there.
So one of the things that we have been striving, one of the things that we've been striving to do, and we were talking about it just a little while ago, a couple of us, is around telling stories,
Who's participants?
telling stories that better reflect who and what we are as a community.
Okay.
Brampton is an incredibly diverse community. Orangefield is becoming so.
Spotlight for
When I
everyone.
first moved there 22 years ago, it was extremely uncommon to see anyone who did not look like me. That's changing. And therefore, our responsibility is to better reflect and tell those stories that reflect the changing dynamic of who and what our community is. We had a show last summer called Josiah. We were performing outdoors. So Josiah is the story of Josiah Henson. Josiah Henson was the original Uncle Tom. Before Uncle Tom became a pejorative descriptor of Black people, Harriet Beecher Stowe based Uncle Tom's Cabin on the character of Josiah Henson, who escaped slavery in 1830, came up to Canada through the Underground Railroad, founded what was known as the Dawn Colony down near Dresden, Ontario, which became one of the largest jump-off points for fleeing slaves or people who escaped that horror of slavery, of bondage, and who then spread out into other communities across Canada. A fascinating story about a Canadian, or became a Canadian. And then most recently, we did a show, some of you might have seen it, we did a show called What My Four Sisters Saw. We were working again with a BIPOC creator. BIPOC is Black, Indigenous, People of Color. That's what that descriptor stands for. Some people call it IBPOC because the perception in the Black community is that Indigenous folks were here first, so the I should come first. So IBPOC is also what it's described as. And that was a show about 4 African Canadian women who changed this country forever for the better. One of them being Viola Desmond, who is probably more immediately familiar to you as the woman depicted on our $10 bill. I never completely understood why she deserved to be on the $10 bill. I didn't know that her protest in a movie theater in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia preceded Rosa Parks' demonstration of her civil rights on a bus in, is it Mississippi? I can't recall. Sorry? Thank you. By 10 years, that act of Rosa Parks, or that act of Viola Desmond's occurred 10 years before that act of so-called civil disobedience by Rosa Parks. How we doing, gents? This is it. The technical department is having a fantastic, we're having a great time down here. What else do I want to say? Oh, okay. So where this has led us, this has led us. Can we knock on the lights again? Thanks, Mike. Is when in March of 20, when we closed the theater, I mean, shut it down for the sake of what it is. After about, I don't know about you, but it kind of took us about maybe 3 months to kind of settle enough to not be like, to think, how do we move forward? Rather than just sitting, dead in the water. So we switched to an online programming system. I wish I could say I'm some great visionary, but I'm not. I'm a coward. And the reason, fundamentally, the reason why we shifted to online programming is because I did not have the guts to sit down across from people who have worked for me for a decade and more and tell them that they didn't have a job and that they needed to leave now. I didn't have the heart or the guts to be able to do that. So I thought, what can we do to keep everybody working? So we shifted to an online video distribution system. Nothing will ever, 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 ever replace the live theater experience. You can sit at home and listen to whoever you want to listen to, Vivaldi or whatever. Playing that record, now I'm dating myself, playing that record will never, ever quite replicate what it is when you're sitting in Roy Thompson Hall, listening to that. That first Led Zeppelin album is great, but if you saw Led Zeppelin at the Rock Pile in 1970, that was really something that you will remember. And when you play that record, you are recapturing what that live experience was when you heard that music for the first time. So we invest, or quite frankly, you, as taxpayers of the province of Ontario and of Canada, invested in our company to put into place an in-house video system that now we have 19 shows and counting, because every show that we do from now on will be live streamed, will be performed in the theater. They are live streamed into your home in real time, and they are also video captured in order for us to be able to put into this catalog. If I can put, your people of business, if I can put 275 bums in seats in the theater, and I can put another 275 bums in seats online, suddenly it's a very different equation when it comes to what the bottom line looks like. So it's not just an investment in preserving work, it's an investment in us. We now have audiences who join us from Portugal, Panama, other key places, I'm sure, too, and Winnipeg, of all strange places, but there you are. They don't even know where Orangeville is. They don't even know where Ontario is, never mind Orangeville, right? For us to be able to share that work on a different level. Had this not happened, we never would have gone down that road. Or if we did, it would be years from now. I'm very pleased to say that in the past 26 months, I have a core staff of 14 people. Not one of them has missed a paycheck in 24 months. So that to me is going to, when we walk away or when we move beyond this, because what's happened now is that our, like so many industries, our industry, people are leaving it in droves. The opportunity to find success as an actor, per se, in theater in Canada is about this big. If there's 50 kids who come out of a theater school class, within 5 years, no more than 5 of them will still be actively pursuing what they spent 4 years of their lives studying to become. So the odds have always been terrible. Now, even more so. So lighting designers, carpenters, scenic painters are retooling, retraining, and God bless them, God love them, but it's really difficult to find. If I had had to turn my staff loose, I could not have brought them back. And I could not, like so many businesses are finding now, I could not have rehired at that same level of talent and of creativity, right? So our shows, our theater would look very different. We're not about making TV. We're not about making film. We have created a unique hybrid of theater using media format that allows us to create something quite new and quite different. If you haven't had an opportunity to watch them, check it out. I'm not here to sell you a ticket. I'm just here to tell you that there's no excuse to ever miss a Theater Orangeville show again, because you can either drive to Orangeville or you can sit in your house and watch it anytime you want. Because let's face it, the only thing that has kept us all going and sane up to this point has been the arts, music, film, whether it's Netflix, whether you're reading a book or whether you're writing a book or whether you're learning how to tango or whatever you're doing, it is those kind of arts-based experiences that, well, they keep us alive anyways at the best of times, but in these times particularly, they become super, super important. An understanding of what they bring to our lives, whether it's watching the Leafs or whatever it is, those engaging opportunities are really something else. I don't think we're going to get this brought up, which is okay because it was just a bunch of pictures of like, you know, actors and stuff like that. And they were guys. Sorry, Dieter? Yeah, okay, we're gonna share it online afterwards. You'll see some pretty pictures. It's really great. Any questions so far? I have no idea, Neil, how long you've been
Yeah,
talking.
we got about another 10 minutes.
Another 10 minutes, good Lord. Anybody have any questions, comments, observations, criticisms, remarks? Yes, sir. Careful of that microphone. I don't trust you.
Oh, it works.
I understand what you were saying about Shakespeare, and as a science and technology student in the high school system back when 313 existed, the only way that we got through my particular class, the only way that we got through Shakespeare was the Shaw or the Stratford Festival.
Right.
Had their trainings that went down there once a year, and they usually chose the presentation that was being studied in the Ontario curriculum.
Right on. Yeah, no, Stratford is, I wish I could deny this, but to my shame. I'm sure like all of us are, you know, our high school, you know, we went to Stratford, we saw a show. To my everlasting shame, and Anthony Chimolino, if you're watching this, forgive me, is, you know, I was one of those kids who threw pennies at the stage. Misbehaved in the theater. Yeah, Stratford holds a really amazing place in my life because I had the same kind of experience. The first play I ever saw in my life was Pericles, which should just never be done again. Although Stratford does it brilliantly, don't get me wrong. But yeah, Stratford is one of those places where we've cut our teeth on it. We not specifically Stratford, because again, I love my friends at Stratford. Part of the problem with Shakespeare is that sometimes actors don't understand what they're saying, like themselves. And if they don't understand, then there's no way you're going to understand what it is, right? He's a very fox for his valor and a very goose for his discretion. Like that's a laugh line. Like that's supposed to get in Shakespeare's days, people were rolling in the aisles when they heard that, right? It's just a different time. Anyone else? Wow.
Wow, you answered them all.
Awesome. Well, I don't know about that. I don't know if what's coming up. I left some playbills here. Please come and we announced a new season. God willing, we will be back in the theater. The deal on this is that when the pandemic struck, I swore a holy oath that I would not cut this off until we were gathered in the theater on an opening night with a full house without having to have any of these restrictions in place. I fully expect that it'll be down to my knees before, if my mother saw the length of my hair, she'd take a stick to me. Any road. And what else? Yes, so, and we've got, there's an arts festival coming up in August. We sort of slow down now. Our season ends on the 15th of May with the closing of rock and roll, and then we can kind of regroup a little bit and figure out what we're going to do for the summer and getting into the fall for you to come and see stuff in the fall. Any last questions? Do I have any questions? I don't think yes, sir, again.
Yeah. Sorry to be every time, but
No. You know what? It's enchanting.
there's that bypass Orangeville, that's affected Orangeville, it has to happen. Oh, it has to
You mean
happen.
the traffic bypass?
Yeah.
So, you know, I don't know if you've all been on that bypass that, you know, takes the truck traffic off 10 and puts it onto the west or 109.
And you don't have to come to Orangeville.
And you don't have to go through Orangeville, but for 30 years at least, I mean, like 20, at least before my time, there was talk of building the bypass or a bypass that took traffic around the downtown. Our area enjoys, question mark, I'm not too sure. I don't mean it to be a political editorial comment, is perhaps the safest Tory riding in the province of Ontario, provincially. And so when Ernie Eves became premier of the province, he didn't have a riding. And he became the member of parliament for our riding. And he was there for, I don't know, what was it, 18 months or 2 years, whatever it was. And they had talked for 30 years about building that bypass. Within 6 months of the premier being the premier's riding, construction started on the bypass. Coincidence? Fate? I don't know. But yeah, the bypass is great. Yes, sir.
I had an opportunity to teach drama in secondary school and also be as an English teacher.
Right on.
And I'm just wondering if there's thought of connecting with the drama programs. I was just a supply person who knew absolutely little other than what I read. But the connectivity with drama students, with what you are aspiring to do and continue to do, I think would be a nice fit.
We do. We have huge kids program, after school programs, summer programs, all that kind of stuff. But we do work directly with the high schools, with our local high schools. We have 3 in our immediate community that we work with on a regular basis. Some of those teachers teach for me in some of our classes. We go into the schools a lot. Of course, the kids that have grown up through that system are the kids that have been in our programs and our young companies and all that kind of stuff. So I think there is a real synergy with the high schools, because that's where the change has to occur, right? Like that's where the exciting.
There's your future.
Right, like we're done. You know what I mean? Like we're done. So it's the investment that we make in those young people that is what's going to save the world, the art form, the whatever it is, right? We're recording this, right? Okay.
We can already say.
Part of the challenge, or perhaps creative opportunity, is I find that sometimes the boards seem to be entrenching more in, not outreach. How do I want to say this? Let me give you an example. When we did Josiah, the play that I was telling you about the man who escaped slavery, the use, and thank you for your honesty and your admission that you've heard that word before, of that word occurs, I think it's 27 times in that play. We wanted to tour it into schools. The answer was no. Because of that word. The fact that it's being used by a Black man to a predominantly white audience, but by a Black man talking about a time in history that was an abomination, and the escape of that, and what that word meant in the context of what that journey was, has led us to some sort of awareness. To deny that piece of history is denialism, and just makes it difficult to bring those kind of stories forward. 1,000,000 years ago, I don't know if any of you saw Showboat, the original production of Showboat that was in Toronto at the, whatever it was called, yes, exactly, at Mel Lastman. Showboat is the story, takes place on a Mississippi or with the river Showboat, right? Is that in that show, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is that there is a young woman who is of mixed descent, Black and white, of mixed descent, but has been passing herself in the white world and is pursued and lusted after by the villain of the piece, who, when he is not successful in his advances towards her, outs her. And she is completely shunned by everyone, Black community and white community. And she comes to a whatever end. And that word was used in that musical. And it was a huge hue and cry in Toronto at the time around the use of that word. Garth Drabinsky, many things, but a great impresario, brought in James Earl Jones, the voice of CNN. Darth Vader came in and said, "You cannot take this word out of this show because it's about my grandparents and my great-grandparents and their life in bondage as slaves. And to not get, by the use of it, we're demonstrating why it is an abomination and a word that should not be ever be used. So it's difficult sometimes to advance those conversations when it's just, you know.
Changing the subject a little bit here.
Please do.
In that movie, Showboat, wasn't it Ava Gardner who sang "Fish Gotta Swim, Fish Gotta Fly"? I gotta love one man till I die.
It was Ava Gardner, but it was
She
Lena
played
Horne.
the part of that you're talking about.
Yes, it was Lena Horne who did it originally, but because Lena Horne was black, Ava Gardner was given the role in the movie, but Ava Gardner did not sing.
But in the stage show you're talking about.
Yeah, in the stage show. But Ava Gardner did the film, but she was not a singer, so her singing was dubbed. It's like Audrey Hepburn in My Fair Lady. That's not her singing, right? Deborah Carr doesn't sing in The King and I, things like that.
But
It was all Marnie Nixon. Remember the name Marnie Nixon? Marnie Nixon did all the singing for all of those women in all of those movies. A lot. She did My Fair Lady. She did The King and I. She did all of those. That's her voice. Not
Okay.
that movie star.
But the question I was going to ask was not, I just happened to tack on to that one to see if I was right.
For sure.
The other one, I look at modern technology today, and I look at how newspapers are slowly dwindling.
Right.
And the question I ask you, will the stage, as we know it today, based on some of the old movies you watch where the audience really participated in a play, if they didn't like what the actor said, they could respond to what they were saying. So there was dialogue between the audience and the actors on the stage. But do you think there'll come a day, and the pandemic that we're having now, you look at the numbers in this room compared to what we used to have, will those days be gone? Not in my lifetime, but in some of the younger people. They won't know what we knew about stage shows.
I don't think so at all. And I'm encouraged because in the
Just a second.
conversations that I have with young people, so many of them are turning away from things like Instagram and that kind of experience. They're finding it unfulfilling. And what they want is that live interactive experience with real people. This will be with us forever.
From now on, it will be, but it wasn't in the past.
Exactly, but it will be forever. So what we are trying to do as an organization, and what I challenge young people is, then become the master of this. Don't become its slave. Don't sell yourself into technical bondage. Become the master of this and use it well and use it properly and be responsible in your use of it. Because we've all heard horror stories about the kind of crap that's posted out there, that young people unthinkingly have posted stuff, photos, all kinds of stuff that have impacted their lives to the point that some of them have taken their lives.
Yeah, but that's how you think, but the young people think differently than we do.
I disagree with you.
Well, I have 3 of them, so I think I have a little more understanding than you might have.
And that's great too. I understand.
Anyway, I'll end my stuff.
No, that's
Get you to have
fantastic.
your microphone back.
I'll tell you part of the thing about that too is I have to believe in my heart. I have to believe in my heart that your 3 grandchildren or whoever they are will come to an understanding and an awareness of what this is, if they're properly guided and instructed on what it is, because this is the most brilliant thing that's ever happened to the human race. The potential for good with it. We can sit here now and we can look up anything we want to know about the English language. We can have instant information. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think. It's how we use it and how our attitude to this is, right? And I think that young people are the future of it and will be the masters of this. I don't understand. I don't know how to use it. I don't know when to turn it off. I lie in bed at night and 2 hours later, when I should have been asleep, old man that I am, I'm watching something about cats eating Christmas cake or something. I don't even know what it is.
Dogs is better.
Right? I don't use it responsibly, but I think young people do. I think they understand. First of all, they know how to turn it off. If a phone rings in the theater, If, when somebody's phone goes off in the theater, it will never, ever be anyone under the age of 35 whose phone has gone off. It's gonna be guys like you and me, and who go, I don't know, I need my glasses, I can't find the thing. Young people understand the etiquette and they understand the technology to be able to turn their phone off when they go into the theater. We're the guys who leave our phones on and it rings and everybody goes, who is that guy? Who did that? Anyway, I've gone on far too long.
Listen, David, you were scheduled to be here 2 years ago.
So I had a lot to say.
We wish we had had you here before the pandemic. You would have helped us got through it a little better.
Well, it's not over, my friend.
And you are healing us going forward.
Oh, bless your heart.
I want to read this out here. There's a sheer joy to be found in making and sharing live theater. David invites you to watch, listen, think, feel, question, challenge, emphasize, and most of all, imagine. For as soon as an audience and artists engage in the collective art of imagining, lives are changed. The world is changed. Theater Orangeville is a family of artists, from the stage to the office, to the shops and the boardroom. All of whom passionately believe that theater is a powerful and entertaining experience that, with your support, is helping to contribute to the creation of a vital and vibrant community. David looks forward to sharing the imagination, unexplainable, a miracle that is live theater with you and your family every time you become part of their audience.
Wow, that's good stuff. Who wrote that? If I may know one last thought of what, it was an epiphany for me this morning. This thought came to me right out of the blue. I didn't expect it, but to me, it really encapsulates what the experience is of live theater. To stimulate thought, interest in participation in activities at a time of life when it is easy to become complacent and self-centered. So says Probus.
That's it.
So thank you for that. Thanks for the opportunity to come out and talk to you this morning. Thank you. Thank you very much for this. As always, any of the work that I do is for these kind of things is pro bono. So your very generous donation will be directly applied to supporting our youth programs, and specifically it'll go towards our basically sort of send a kid to camp kind of program to help kids that perhaps can't afford tuition. So thank you very much. That's exactly where this will go. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Great fun.
It's on.
That is, okay, great. David, thank you very much. That was
Thank you.
enjoyable, and thank you very much for that. It's being suggested that we take a very short break, so if we could do that, be back in 10 minutes, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Yeah, well, it's always great to talk to this department. Yes, indeed.
Since a website was started on Facebook, a Probus Men's Club of Brampton Facebook website. To date, we have 31 members signed up. Unfortunately, only 5 to 15 members check the website on a regular basis. That's very poor over 2 years. So what I'd like to do is, effective today, to step down as the administrator of the Facebook website. I'm hoping that maybe we can attract a new administrator who has maybe some fresh ideas to keep the website alive and well. I want to thank the members who have participated and hope that the website will continue into the foreseeable future. And that's it. Thank you. And we are looking for a new administrative process.
All right, thanks, Marcel. And Marcel has been great, has been pushing Facebook for a very long time. So thank you for all your work on that. Dieter, did you want to say anything this morning? Okay, no report. Okay, was there any new business?
No, I think,
There being no new business, we are, hold on.
John has a question. I think we should sing happy birthday.
Happy birthday to.
Dieter,
Well, he really didn't want it to be sort of published, but
it's
I'll
Dieter's
together now.
birthday today.
so Dieter is 1 year older and wiser. So congratulations.
Way to go, Dieter.
Okay, was there any other new business or old business in this case? All right, no new business, old business, we are adjourned. Okay, sorry, Pascal's got his hand up.
Can you hear me now?
All right. Have a great day.
Okay.
Yes, there is a question I would like to ask you, and I've asked you this question before with no response from you. I have said, instead of having guest speakers talk to us, why don't we have discussions amongst ourselves regarding topics that pertain to we as seniors? There's so many topics out there, and now we're getting into an election, and we have to choose the right person that will have us and thinking of us, and not just think of us as an old coffee cup where you throw it away when we're finished. We haven't reached that age yet, at least I haven't. I still have a lot of fight left to me, and to the last breath. No. We should have a discussion here in this room that we, like a union, when I joined the union, my father encouraged me to go to the union.